What is heroism? Well, for one, it's a very common theme in a lot of the media today. We just had a whole decade of superhero movies. If you want to look at anime, My Hero Academia, which I have seen about a whopping 6 episodes of, is all about becoming a hero. It's all about individualism and what sets someone apart that would make them a good hero. People love individual excellence because it's a very cool way to put yourself in the shoes of those heroes and imagine what it would be like to feel that great. What is it like to be able to turn the tide of battle with a singular action? What is it really like to be greater than the rest? In short, heroism is individualism triumphing over the bad, the villainy, and the wrong of our world. But what are the base components of heroism? In short, it's individualism, fame, a show of talent or skill, being better than the rest, yes, justice, helping others, the greater good, which is going to be really important to this discussion, and ego. All of these things make up what it is to be heroic to some people, what really motivates people into heroism. And in Hat Atelier, there is no such thing as heroism. And that is a systematic choice enforced by the world. The very fabric of their society rejects heroes, but how can that be in a magical, fantastical world where you can fly, draw water from seemingly nowhere, return stone into sand? In short, rules. And the long answer? Well, hey, my name is Esper, and I talk about things to a depth nobody asked for. And let's answer your question as to why there are no heroes in this story. Let's get started. No major spoilers for this video essay, but I will need to lift the curtain a little bit, so to speak. Any major plot points aside from those that are immediately revealed in Volume 1 will not be mentioned, so enjoy. Hat Atelier takes place in a world called Zozah. It is inhabited by the unknowing, those who have no magic, and the witches who are the spellcasters within this world. They stay away from most of the unknowing unless it is to create contraptions to sell. In a more indirect way, they help with natural disasters as they are contracted to do so by the monarchs of the rest of the world. 6 monarchs rule in total for all the lands of Zozah. The witches, however, are not subjects to any of them. They live in the Great Hall far under the sea, under the rule of the 3 Wise. The 3 Wise is the ruling body of all of the witches, and it's exactly what it sounds like. 3 people in charge of different things. Beldaruit is wise in teachings, and you guessed it, he is in charge of the education of the witches. Laglah is wise in friendship, and that means political relations and diplomacy. Vinanna is wise in principles, and you might think that means, like just general principles. No, that is principles with a capital P. That is principles of the witches. She's in charge of bringing the wrath of the law down on you, so be careful. We traverse this world by following Coco, an unknowing who got a golden ticket to witch society, Qifrey, her teacher, and the rest of the apprentices, Tetia, Richeh, and Agott. And we are made to witness when Coco's wonder and amazement for magic very quickly turns sour. Little by little, as I went on this journey with her, I slowly realized that beyond the beauty of the art, the marvel of the magic, and the ingenuity and the joy of discovery, this story was fucked up. But it does wine and dine you first. We are going to see each and every single thing that witch society uses to make sure that heroism isn't in the cards. But the first thing that we are going to talk about is isolation of witch society. Well, actually, I think it's a little bit closer to ostracization that witch society employs. So let me correct that real quick. We're going to see now how witch society uses ostracization as a really, really powerful tool to keep their people in line. Let's go. There is a rigidity to witch society that feels subtly pervasive. and it's enforced by the other people who live there. Not even by any malicious means, but this is just what life is, and people who stick out are quickly ostracized. Qifrey seems to have collected all of the misfits with him, so it's easy for us to draw examples of when living there has a bad outcome. We see this with Agott when they visit the Great Hall. Someone recognized her and brought up that she was accused of cheating, and that's why she left. It doesn't matter that it was never proven. Even her mother seems to have disowned her, which is, like, really fucked up. Her punishment was quick and swift without due process because it was a social execution and not a lawful one. There aren't exactly a lot of rules that go along with it. She was immediately isolated from the only society she ever knew because of an accused transgression. Not even a real one. Which, by the way, is kind of a recurring theme in which society they are a punish first and ask questions later type of people. Which is bad. That's very bad. This type of behavior conditions people to think about the punishments ahead of the truth. But we're not going to get into that right now because there is a whole section dedicated to it. Because of this conditioning to put punishment ahead of the truth, people are enforcing this monoculture. After all, it's in the best interest of their quality of life and the conveniences that they enjoy. Why mess with a good thing, you know? It's super reminiscent of small town vibes where everyone kind of knows everyone's business. There is a sense that when the transgression isn't large enough to warrant their choice of punishment, which is memory wiping and literally exile, the only other option is social pressure in the form of swift and ruthless ostracization, or at least the threat of it, until they put themselves back in line, which... This creates a population of people who subconsciously and honestly even consciously fears sticking out and making mistakes. This is an important aspect of how the world of Witch Hat discourages heroism. See, I still remember what this video essay is about. Heroes are at the forefront of the action. The whole point to them is that they stick out. They are not only a deterrent to crime, but they are also larger than life figures. They show off their skills by how much they help people. But in this world, skill and talent are rigorously defined by something else. They are defined by the ability to cast spells and make contraptions. Witch Hat society encourages innovation and invention, probably because those are all faceless accomplishments that also bring in money. And if you disagree, quick, tell me the person who invented those little coffee holder things. Good, I'll wait. You can't, because no one cares so long as the coffee isn't singeing their literal flesh. Individualism comes in the most faceless way possible, and this is just the norm of their society. And speaking of norms, everyone is kinda in on it because they're all raised on it and they're all working to enforce it. And why wouldn't they? It has been shown to them demonstrably their entire life that if they followed the rules, if they fell in line and they made others fall in line with them and respect the pact and the principles, that they would get to experience all that witch society has to offer. That's being able to cast magic, being able to enjoy the Great Hall and all of its conveniences, and being able to be better than the rest. The Great Hall is an incredible, fascinating part of their isolation, but also exclusivity. The witches have sequestered themselves off to this little piece of, I was going to say land, but they're underwater, and they have immense amount of conveniences and magic surrounding them. They aren't subject to any monarchs or rulers besides the three wise, obviously. And there's a reason why that the outcasts that we follow do not live in the Great Hall, because this is one of the places where isolation really rings true. This is where those small town vibes really come to haunt you because of the close proximity of everybody in this space. Rumors travel fast. People know your business, and people who have an interest in getting away from the norms of society then make their way out of the Great Hall into the real world. That's why we have Qifrey with his atelier far away, even from the city. But we're also going to see how the Great Hall is a status symbol almost in its exclusivity for the witches. Now that we've talked about ostracization in witch society, let's talk about exclusivity, another powerful tool that they use to make sure that there are no heroes. Because part of being a hero, like we discussed earlier, is a show of talent and skill, of helping others, of being specifically better than the rest. And having magic exclusively kind of takes care of a lot of these things. So let's talk about it. I've read all of the volumes that are currently out, and there is not a single mention of the unknowing being let into the magical world prior. Pretty exclusive if you ask me. When Coco discovers that the ability to do magic belongs to everyone, it shatters her world. That and her mother being turned into stone. And no, I refuse to explain that one. Let's talk about this for a second. The true technicality of this is, as Qifrey describes it to us, is that magic is passed down from witch to an apprentice that can be trusted. Makes sense, right? Someone who can be trusted will get the secrets. Boom, boom, 1 + 1 = 2. But in practice, it becomes a birthright to people who are already in that society. And just as a note, there is another rule, but I don't know how official it is, that you must be born into a witch family to practice magic. This feels a little bit more like an afterthought, almost like an admission, like, hey, this is what we actually meant. There are no motions or movements to integrate others into witch society. In fact, maybe that's what they wanted. Through the eyes of Coco, our protagonist, we see the marvel and the treasures that witches bring upon the world. And by extension, we see the absolute fucking lie of it. She is our baseline for what is normal for the unknowing. Witches, they say, are born with their powers. They are gifted. No one not born as a witch can become one. But we still see their intervention on the daily lives of non-magical people through contraptions. We're gonna stop here for a second and dissect the term unknowing. If you're a discerning viewer, you would find this weird. Why? Because the people know that magic exists. So what is the secret then? What are they unknowing about? Did you figure it out yet? They are unknowing about the fact that magic isn't a birthright. Magic can be done by drawing symbols with special ink, and that's it. The unknowing has been fed the lie that magic does not belong to them, that the only magic they will get are contraptions that allow for comforts of magic. This creates a palpable feeling of dependency because there is one. All the intervention that witches do are things that they have been taught to do for diplomacy and to make money. The predecessors of the Three Wise chose this flavor of isolation for the witches and then imposed it on every other witch going forward. The more I describe this, the more it sounds like a cult. But I swear that's not where I was going with this. Anyway, let's talk about the Great Hall. The exclusivity is most evident when we see how the other half lives. When Coco first visits the Great Hall, this visitation was a culture shock for Coco. To put it simply, life had many conveniences that it felt almost like a different world, and honestly, it was a different world. We're fortunate enough to have Coco put everything into perspective for us. Her wonder and amazement make us realize the large gaps between the comforts of witch society and life as an unknowing. But there is a hidden, unsettling underbelly to the seemingly wonderful utopia that is so easily missed under the marvel of the food, the wave bath, and the tubs that wash your clothes for you. Beyond the separation, beyond the disconnect from their fellow other humans, the price for all of this is constant surveillance and conformity. The thing about having nearly all of the witches in one place, besides it being really, really stupid, is that it also makes for easy surveilling of your entire population. When you live in a castle under the sea, you're pretty isolated. And we were told by Elira, an acquaintance of Qifrey, that rarely do witches ever venture out and make their own atelier far away from the conveniences of the Great Hall. This is part of the reason why heroism isn't particularly needed by the witches either. Their base needs are always met, and life is just generally better for them. We'll talk about it more in the last section, but man, this setup sucks. That is why heroism isn't even in the cards. There are two worlds by design that has been made to be separate. Oftentimes, heroism is the desire to make the world better for everyone because at the end of the day, they all share the same community and spaces. That is largely untrue of the way the world of Witch Hat Atelier works. The life of an unknowing doesn't affect them, and the life of the witches is so far out of reach for the unknowing that it might as well be a fairy tale. But honestly, I gotta give it to them how they've managed to not only make heroism shit, but they've provided alternatives that make people feel fulfilled and steered their society in ways that makes them behave in the desired fashion. It was only at the cost of literally everyone else. What a bargain, really. But let's say that you do care about people, and we see this multiple times throughout the manga. Witches can and will be punished if something they do threatens the secrecy of casting magic, or if it is perceived that they did something that could be misconstrued as a breach of the principles. We see this when Agott and Coco try their best to rescue these people from a landslide, and instead of help, the Knights of Moralis are quickly deployed when they see someone who they think might be breaking the principles. So, when a perceived act of heroism will get you into trouble instead of fame and adoration, it tends to put a hard stop to that idea. They're already in the in crowd, and an action would make them lose it. It's kind of brilliant, actually, because inaction is always easier than action. The setup that the witches made is damn near immaculate. Now that we've talked about exclusivity, let's get to our last section. But esper, you say, there's 3 more sections here. Well, I've actually cut out Cold War and politics, and I've merged the sections that have to do with secrecy and punishment, because they are incredibly intertwined. And now I ask you, is it better to be respected, or is it better to be feared? Which one do you think will keep a population in line better? And which society has decided that being feared is better than being respected? So let's talk about it. And now it's later. So it's time to talk about the Knights of Moralis and the secrecy and punishment that is pervasive in witch culture. The very thin veil that is protecting witch society is secrecy and punishment. These are 2 sections that I decided to merge because they are so very intertwined. The only reason that the secret has been kept for so long is that 1, the punishment for breaking this rule is so incredibly severe that it is arguably worse than death. 2, they have all been basically raised on the idea that secrecy is the most important aspect of their culture. And 3, there are no alternatives unless you consider joining the villains an alternative. Dissenting from this structure requires you to make it out on your own and to shoulder and accept immense burdens and dangers to your personhood, since the punishment of choice for witches is memory erasure. And this is total character annihilation, an eventual exile, because memory erasure is basically turning that person into an unknowing. This tells us that the lives of non-magic users, or the unknowing as witches like to call them, isn't particularly important to them. In fact, it sends the message that being an unknowing is inherently a punishment, and therefore those of not magical birth are automatically being punished. The witches of old really took the line of "I'll curse you and your descendants" to come super seriously, since secrecy is the most important thing to them, and by extension the rules that protect that secrecy. No one wants to stick out. Let's just be real. Heroes incredibly often break the rules of society for the greater good. And that's really what's missing here. Heroes are always associated with breaking rules. I mean, the Avengers were literally damn near close to destroying New York City, and I kind of like this place. And we had a whole arc of them being torn apart as a group because they were too destructive. But buildings can be rebuilt. Human memories cannot. Or so at least the text tells us, and who knows if they're really reliable. But the greater good is another story. It does exist in Witch society, but it is not immediate human life, which is often the motivating factor of heroes. It is the preservation of something called the Pact. This is the Pact that wiped out all of the magical knowledge from the people of Zozah, the world in which our story takes place. The Pact is an effort to reduce overall evil and harm within the world. As the story goes, the Pact is what was created when the harm and evil that was created by the widespread knowledge of magic reached a breaking point. Wiping everyone else's memory was decided by a small group of witches, the predecessors to the Pointed Caps. Let me say that again. These handful of people decided to wipe the memory of the rest of the world. Greater good or not, this is the type of justice that exists in the world, and probably the biggest answer as to why there are no heroes in this world. The good guys are also villains in their own right. Dun dun dun. Yeah, I said it. Taking away people's personhood to create a better world, but they get to keep their powers? Who decided who got to live? Because essentially they killed everyone. That is a really harsh way of putting it, but magic was intertwined at that point within everyone's lives. Even if they could cherry pick each and every moment with magic and pluck it from its roots, what about the memories surrounding it? They would fail to make sense. Who are we if not for our memories? Who are we if not the way we intertwine with the world? Was there a whole generation who just walked around lobotomized? Qifrey even acknowledges this in one of the earlier chapters. He lectures his apprentices that if they had been caught casting magic, the people who witnessed them would have had to have their memories wiped. And that's not a good thing. They know memory wiping is not a good thing. It's almost like a necessary evil. And you say, esper, maybe they just made the bad guys forget. Well, boy howdy, let me tell you. Another thing that clues me in that the Pointed Hats aren't as righteous as they believe themselves to be is that we find out in an almost throwaway reveal that they decided to also wipe the memories of the witches who only wanted to heal. Isn't there like a golden rule of war? Don't attack the medics or some shit? Have I been misled by movies this entire time? Surely, attacking the people who only wants to heal others makes you the bad guy. And just so there is no confusion, these are the predecessors of the current witches. This is not the brim caps who wanted to just get away with everything and say fuck the rules. Look, I get wiping out healing magic because of its direct link to basically becoming immortal, right? But the amount of suffering in the world that would have been alleviated by healing magic would be immense. Is it really worth it? You know, we have boy math, girl math, bisexual math, but like, I didn't think we would be adding morally gray ruling body math to the list. If they ruled with the same iron fist that they do now, is it really so impossible to rein in healing magic or keep it fairly secret? All I'm saying is that there are ways. And this is certifiably evil from them. Remember, ladies, if he wanted to, he would. Or, if they really thought magic would inevitably bring about evil, they would have prioritized hunting down the brimmed caps and then wiped their own memories to truly rid the world of magic and not live in their isolated tower far away from the plight of those magicalists disconnected to the day-to-day struggles. Look, I won't discount the fruits of their labor. I think that would be disingenuous. They have created a world where the wonders and conveniences of magic are shared with people for a price. They have managed to at least maintain this balance of power to keep things from devolving as they previously did. And I really do truly believe that they believe they are keeping the world from descending into madness. We know Beldaruit is not a bad person. He has chosen suffering from his medical condition when healing magic would solve all of his problems. He believes in the cause. I just want to take this moment to praise the writing of Hat Atelier for a moment. It does a good job maintaining a balance between good and bad. It touches on the topic that there is no pure good in the world, and sometimes we willingly make those questionable choices to inch toward a better world. And oftentimes we also choose our own conveniences and quality of life over reaching over to the other side of the fence to help out other people. It is a good reminder that there is nothing wrong with the people living their lives, and there's nothing wrong with participating in the circumstances you were born in. It recognizes that becoming a hero is one of great personal risk, and that most people just simply aren't heroes. They're just people who are capable of small heroisms. There is a reason why we got to see the Great Hall and why we spend so much time with Qifrey and the apprentices outside. The isolation of the Great Hall makes it harder for witches to wrap their heads around who people are outside of, 1, people they need to keep a secret from, and 2, people they have transactions with. The conveniences and safety that witches experience allow them to progress their society, while the outside gets small trickles. The progression of witch society further and further away from the unknowing just increases their disconnect. And no one, not a single soul, will bring magic to them, because witches aren't heroes. They are just people. People who are vulnerable to society's rules and regulations. People who have their own lives and dreams. Their society set up a large hurdle for them to change the way life works for the unknowing, but also offered up a smaller avenue to ease struggles. And we should see the human kindness in that a lot of witches did take up that avenue to make contraptions that make people's lives better. There are no heroes in this story because of the severity of the punishment. When the stakes are this high for any rule breaking, then there are 2 outcomes. One is that there are no heroes, no people who put themselves in the position worse than death. And in a society where heroics are put on high regard, death is the ultimate sacrifice. You come out on top if you die. You're a hero to your last breath. But in a society where there are no heroes, and one especially where people are told that things are good as they are, risking the good things aren't desirable or worth it, nor would it make a difference because the memory of all those you help would be wiped. But they have steered their society in small but significant ways toward achieving some improvements for the unknowing, contraptions being one of them. They have also built in duty to bring blessings of magic to the unknowing, which society has sought to help in the same ways that they have harmed, by building up societal and lawful expectations around it. But that's the charitable version of it, and I'm done giving praises to the witches, because now I've got some more criticisms. On a certain level, it feels like the witches stole magic from the people and sold it back to them like a subscription service, which is the real crime here. While I believe that Beldaruit, Vinanna, and Laglah are of the mindset that they are protecting the world from the magical downfall, they're only inheritors of this system that is quite attractive. Lessen evil, help people. It seems so simple and so good, but to even have established the society in the first place, their ancestors would have had to consider the amount of gain they were getting at the loss of all of these people. Of course, we are also supposedly gaining peace, but let's remember, Hat Atelier has established its gray morality. Don't lose that thread for any amount of time, because otherwise reality will give you a wake-up call. It can be both true that they wanted to help and help themselves. The product of this, then, is that witches don't even view themselves in a similar light to the unknowing. There is an uneasy distance there for me where the biggest connection that they share is the witch's seeming duty to at least provide some sort of improvement to the lives of the unknowing. Or as Olgorio quotes it directly, their duty to bring blessings of magic to the people. What is this? Some sort of penance? Some toll fee for taking away magic from everyone else? But also, there is actual monetary fees that is paid to the witches. And it's this distance that creates this power dynamic between the witches and the unknowing. Beldaruit said that they must never seek to subjugate if they never want to be conquered, but I would argue that they have already subjugated people, because if the punishment is for getting magic, then the reward must be a life with magic, but only if you're born into it. This is starting to feel like a metaphor for capitalism. Anyway, we know that this is an action done with good intent, an action done to curb the spread of evil, because as Qifrey said, for when man has the power to do anything, then he will do.
The Knights of Moralis then make it the personal responsibility to fall in line. And that's really a big part of why there are no heroes in this story. The Knights of Moralis is basically the law. They are the enforcers of which world. If you fuck up, they'll come after you. And this is really where personal responsibility comes in like a really huge way that I hate. The presence of the Knights of Moralis makes it so that your personal responsibility is to the witch society and not to anybody else. Of course, you want to keep your magic, right? So therefore, you will fall in line. But if you do manage to mess up, to break the law, they'll come and they'll wipe your memory. That's where their responsibility ends. And I think that's a little bit fucked up. How much personal cost should a person be willing to pay? How effective really is punishment without rehabilitation? Are the Knights of Moralis really effective, or are they just garbage disposal for the undesirables of their society? Think about it in this way. Whenever someone gets their memories wiped, they are sent off to an exile island to prepare them for life as an unknowing, and they are dumped into society. While these people go through some form of treatment, I would bet that they are only trained for the gaps in their knowledge and given an identity, then bloop, dropped into society. If their base personality stays the same, which I think it would, then are they wreaking havoc on the unknowing too? This isn't a world free of crimes. So are the Knights of Moralis just dumping their criminals to the unknowing while touting, "We don't interfere on calamities wrought by man"? Man seems to be the witch's greatest calamity, and they've decided to outsource dealing with it to the people who are far less capable of wrangling against criminals than offered no help. Seems a tad bit selfish to me, but isn't that where all of this lies? Isn't that where we've ended up? That humans have become unimportant to the utmost priority of the witches, which is secrecy. And in that, the witches hadn't even realized that they have themselves become unimportant to their own society. And that begs the question, is this secrecy, is this perceived peace really worth all of the suffering that it is bringing to people? The people who have their memories wiped and are denied rehabilitation. The people who have been robbed of magic. The people who need it but cannot have it. The people who are suffering from curable illnesses. The people who need heroism.
I've been thinking a lot about what heroism actually is and what sort of heroism the Witch Hat Atelier world needs. Because I talked a lot about why there is no heroism in this story, but it feels like I didn't talk enough about what heroism really would do for this world. What I landed on is that the world of Witch Hat Atelier really needs personal heroism. And I'll explain what that means in a few steps. But what I've really noticed is the theme of Witch Hat is that so many people feel left behind if they don't conform to society. And that may be a little bit skewed in our perspective because we do follow the people who have chosen to reject witch society, at least to a certain degree, and be with Qifrey, who has his atelier away from the Great Hall. But there is also this sense that there isn't a lot of wiggle room in witch society, that it's not centered around the people who actually live in it. So I think that there needs to be a recentering around the values that witch society really holds near and dear to its heart. I think that there needs to be a lot more compassion in the world and a lot more of an emphasis on community. And I think that this sort of individualism really threatens the laws and rules that they have instilled. And that's kind of a scary thought that they are moving away from that because of this threat to their laws and their rules. There needs to be an emphasis on leniency because there is always an exception. Not every situation is the same. And thinking that one blanket rule, one blanket pact will cover everything, that's insane. That's absolutely bonkers. But really, what these people need in this story, in this world, is personal heroisms on a small scale, heroisms in the way that they reach over to the other side and just give a lending hand without the thought first that the pact needs to be honored, the principles need to be followed. And I think that really is where witch society, I was going to say failed, but it is by design. So really, the heroisms that people need are small acts of genuine kindness from each other. Because the real problem in witch society is that people, individuals, feel thrown away. Their fear has been exploited by the systems built around them to make them more compliant and to keep them from thinking about other people's well-being. And that's really sad. The real heroism we need in this story is for everybody to fight against the fear, to make way, to give room for compassion to bloom again in this world. Because it's present. We see it in people like Olgurio, who go out of his way to help people. And not everybody will uphold the letter of the law to the most generous interpretation of it. So instead of harboring fear, this needs to be a society that harbors compassion. But that is not in the best interest of the Knights of Moralis and the Three Wise. So we need a hero, or rather many heroes, to go against the system. Thank you so much for watching, and this video essay really creatively and just philosophically pushed me as a person, because I really didn't know what the answer was to this. I didn't know what type of hero was needed by this story, or even if it needed one up until literally right now. But it really made me think of a lot of things more deeply because of how gray the morality is in this story. Anyway, subscribe. Here are the videos that YouTube recommends. And here is my video on stakes, which I mentioned earlier. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.